Moscow is welcoming an exclusive guest today, Gwendal Poullennec, International Director of the Michelin Guides. Michelin Guides are known in the whole world by their recommendations of independent gastronomy experts. The experience is just enormous, more than 120 years and more than 30 countries are featured in the Michelin Guides. 2020 for all of us has been a challenging year, particularly for the restaurant industry and for the tourist industry. The Michelin Guides throughout the crisis have been supporting the chefs and restaurant teams. And today we will speak about how it happened. And Gwendal Poullennec is well known by the fact that quite often he comes personally to meet chefs, to meet the teams. He meets people who are responsible for the culinary industry in every particular locality where the Michelin Guides are present. Good morning, Gwendal. So first of all, could you speak about yourself and about the Michelin Guides? What do we have to know about them?
So good morning. So I've been very fortunate to work along the Michelin Guide team for over 17 years. And since 2018, I'm the head of the Michelin Guide, so in charge of leading the team of the famously anonymous inspectors of the Michelin Guide. So that's a network of professional people from the industry, fully employed by Michelin. And today's selection of the Michelin Guide over 30 different countries throughout the world.
So the experience is huge, 120 years, and the Michelin Guide is successful still today. What is the secret of your longevity?
I would say, first of all, it started with a long-term vision. And with 120 years history, the Michelin Guide has established a very professional, consistent methodology based on 5 criteria and develop the experience of the network of inspectors, so 15 different nationalities. Altogether, they speak more than 25 different languages. They got a background in the restaurant industry as chef, sommelier. They have, for, I think, globally almost 10 years. Then they joined Michelin for 2 years training, and then on the field, they behave like a regular guest to test the restaurants, to enjoy their meals, and to be able to share the recommendation to highlight the best places to eat around the world and to share the news with the local foodies and the international foodies as well.
In spite of natural development and evolution, the secret of the Michelin Guides is still in the methodology and in the stability, right?
Yes, the Michelin Guide methodology has been developed over time. So the Michelin Guide was born in 1900. The first star was disclosed in 1926, and the inspectors team turned to be fully professionalized early 1930s. And since then, we apply the same methodology around the world, from Japan to whole Europe and to California today. And the methodology of the inspectors is based first on 5 criteria: the quality of the product, the mastery of cooking techniques, the harmony of flavors, the personality of the chef as expressed on the plate and its creativity, and last but not least, the consistency of the service over time. So inspectors are full-time employees. They're anonymous and they pay their bill in full to ensure they are treated as any other regular guest.
But this year has been quite particular and negatively particular for the industry. It is the time of the pandemic. Life has changed everywhere since March. What was the impact of that on the restaurant industry?
Yes, 2020 has been a year with unprecedented challenge for the industry due to social distancing, to lockdown and travel bans. And of course, it also impacted the Michelin Guide team, because our team is really international. We have local people, but we have also people that are traveling abroad. And we have to adapt. We have a very solid and agile organization, and based first and foremost on inspectors based locally. So thanks to that, we have been able to follow up what was going on the market, to be very agile, to be really to adapt ourselves when the restaurants were closed, when they reopen. I must say that inspectors have been really committed to make sure that we were close to the restaurants, following their activities, following the pace of their own recovery. And recently we have been able to release our last selection in Europe, like in Spain or Italy. And that's thanks to the hard work on the inspectors, but also what we have noticed on the field is despite the crisis, despite the challenges, despite the lockdown, the restaurants and chefs haven't lost their skills nor their talents, combativity and commitment for their customers. So despite the crisis, we still strongly believe, and that culinary scene is still very vibrant worldwide. It's continuing to expand, and I'm sure that as soon as it will recover, we will have wonderful culinary experience worldwide.
But still, how does it work? I mean, there is lockdowns, there are restrictions on operation, you cannot move, you cannot travel. How does the Michelin Guide continue its work during this situation?
Once again, we have to adapt. So first, we can rely on our local team of inspectors that do not depend on the travel ban, but then we also have to support the industry. So together with the inspectors, together with the Michelin Guide teams worldwide, so we ensure to be in close contact with the chef, to ensure we were able to follow up closely their activity and their recovery. We adapt our planning, of course, because we have had to postpone, to put on hold some of our selection, and then to release them again as soon as it was possible, but always never compromising on the methodology and the quality of our recommendation. Because what is key for the Michelin Guide is also to be the link between the customers, the clients, and the restaurants. And in that way, we can really play a great role in the recovery of the industry, is putting the spotlight on the restaurants, putting the spotlight on the restaurant initiative, and really being part of the back to work and the back to the restaurants trend as soon as it will be possible.
I know that your current visit to Moscow is one of your first international trips since the beginning of the pandemic. How did you personally adapt to this new reality and the new sanitary conditions?
I must say that the trip to Moscow is my first trip outside France since the beginning of the second wave of the pandemic. And I'm very excited to be there because I think more than ever, we have to support the industry. We have to put the spotlight not only on the restaurants, but also all the producers, all the local, food scenes, all the local communities that are part of, ensuring the quality of the products. And product is key to have also a great restaurant experience. So today I'm excited for many reasons. The first, it's my first international trip. So it's a very, vibrant, it's very exciting to be back on the field, back to the restaurants, and they're open now here, back on the field to see some producers, but also because we have an exceptional announcement to make.
Just a second. I would just like to ask yet another question. It's been several days since you came to Moscow. Do you have already your own opinion about the Moscow food scene and the Moscow restaurants?
So it's not my first trip to Moscow, and I've been very fortunate to come several times before, and also to share with my inspectors that have been on the field in Moscow over the past years, to monitor closely the evolution of the local culinary scene, as we do for other culinary scenes throughout the world. And over the past days, I've been on the field to restaurants to visit and meet exceptional people that are making today's Muscovite culinary scene, producers, chefs. I went also to food markets. And let's say that being on the field yesterday, the day before, I thought what inspectors recently told me about Muscovite culinary scene and its recent evolution, based on quality of products, talented young chefs, sometimes young chefs, and also, you know, a very dynamic, vibrant culinary landscape.
So could you please tell me why now, in spite of all the restrictions, in spite of the pandemic, why did you come to Moscow?
After having been able to experience once again the vibrancy of Muscovite culinary scene, I'm very excited to announce today that for the first time in 2021, the Michelin Guide will reveal a selection for Moscow.
So, the main announcement has been made. Now we know that the Michelin Guide is coming to Moscow, but how and why did you decide to add our capital in the list of your destinations?
So, you know, coming to a new destination is always a long-term process with Michelin, because every year around the world we are closely monitoring the different culinary scene. And we decided to move in Moscow because of the quality of the products, you know, the vibrancy of the culinary scene and the talent of the chef. And let's say that the decision of a Michelin Guide to come to a new destination is based first and foremost on the talents of the chef that are making the quality of the local culinary scene.
Well, finally, it's so pleasant to hear what you are now saying, but will Moscow be the only city in Russia who will be featured in the Michelin Guide?
So Moscow will be definitely the first city in Russia to be covered by the Michelin Guide. However, maybe in the future, and I hope so, we'll have the ability to expand to new other culinary destinations. But to come back in Moscow, let's say, you know, that the first selection of the Michelin Guide here is only the beginning of the journey, because we always have a long-term vision, and step by step, we also really hope that the Michelin Guide will help foster the quality of the culinary scene by, you know, igniting a local emulation between the chef and restaurants, and that they will do the best to please the customer.
And is it a mystery or not? So may I ask you when the guide will be published?
Due to the current situation, we decided to launch the guide in 2021, but the final date, the ratings will be released, will be announced later.
And I would like to use this situation, and I cannot but ask you, the inspectors will be local, or are you going to use international inspectors who will come here?
Those Michelin Guide inspectors are definitely one team, even if they are based in many different countries. Today we have 15 different nationalities of inspectors, covering more than 30 different destinations, speaking more than 25 different languages, and in the future definitely we'll have, as everywhere, both local and international inspectors working to publish selections.
Thank you very much. Dmitry, you are Michelin General Director in Russia and the CIS. How is your company developing in our country? You know, Michelin has more than 100 years of history in Russia. It started from the international race Moscow-St. Petersburg, where more than 50% of cars did not reach the finish line, and a car with Michelin tires became the winner. And that was a challenge that showed the participants that in spite of the difficult situation of roads, it is possible to travel safe long distances. The history of Michelin is actually the history of challenges and achievements that often actually precede their times, and Michelin is offering innovative solutions. Recently we presented a vision concept that is a symbiosis between a tire and a wheel, and it is a natural solution. The production and the recycling meets the sustainable development principles by 100%. So, 100 years later, Michelin still offers innovative products and services. The launch of the Michelin Guide in Moscow is a truly historical event. It shows the seriousness of our intentions, and it opens the potential of development of tourism industry and of many other industries. Let's think about it, tires and restaurant guides. But I have the impression that you consider it as the links of one chain of mobility, because it's traveling by car and traveling to restaurants. Well, yes, of course, movement and mobility are among our most important principles of sustainable development. It's crucial for us to make sure that travel is innovative, pleasant, safe, and rapid. The Michelin brand's success is that we always try to step into the shoes of the traveler and to be useful for the traveler. And our guide helps travelers to pick the right places to eat on the map. You know, gastronomy is an inalienable part of mobility. And real gourmets are often ready to travel by thousands of kilometers to go to a restaurant with Michelin stars. History knows about some cases where there was a not very well-known place, but when it got featured in the Michelin guide, it became a tourist destination. So this brand is recognized and respected by consumers. Ekaterina, you are head of the tourism committee of the city of Moscow, so you might be very interested in attracting new tourists to our city and in the arrival of the Michelin guide. What will be the impact of that on the industry? Yes, of course, it is particularly important in this weird year of 2020. And we may make two conclusions based on the events of this year. The first one is about the importance of the dynamic and of the movement that we have in our lives. This is an inalienable part of our lives, and impressions also are crucial today. So, of course, the tourism industry contains all that. Travel is now a part of our lives. We are all used to getting a lot of impressions, and of course, gastronomy is one of the inalienable parts of the impressions that you get from a certain country, a certain city or town. So we are convinced that the publication of such an authoritative guide, the Michelin guide, will raise interest in Moscow. Are you counting more on internal tourism or external tourism? Because the Michelin guide is known all around the world, and when there are restaurants with Michelin stars, that will mean a lot for a huge number of people. I have to highlight that Moscow is already a huge touristic hub. In 2019, before the start of the pandemic, 25 million people, even more, visited Moscow, and most travelers are travelers from our country who just come from different regions to Moscow. So it seems to us that the Michelin guide will be interesting to both internal tourists and, of course, international tourists, particularly taking into account that next year we expect the introduction of an electronic visa, which will make travels much simpler, and it will be easier for people to take a decision to come to our country for tourists from more than 50 countries. What is the reaction that you expect from the restaurant community today? Will it be a kind of support for them? Yes, of course, and they can already feel this support. Of course, the opinion of such an authoritative expert, the Michelin guide, about the sustainability of our environment and of our restaurant scene will, of course, reassure our restaurant owners and chefs. And next year, when the world will open, many people will learn that Moscow merits to become a new gastronomic point on the map. My last question now. Many of us have been in restaurants with a Michelin star. We know who are chefs with a Michelin star. Will the criteria for Moscow be the same as elsewhere?
The criteria of the Michelin Guide are the same everywhere around the world. So always the 5 criteria.
Let us perhaps enumerate those criteria once again, just to hint our restaurant owners and chefs.
So around the world, the Michelin Guide anonymous inspectors apply the same methodology based on the 5 criteria: the quality of the products, the mastery of cooking techniques, the harmony in flavors, the personality of the chef as expressed on the plate, and the consistency of the service around the year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good luck to the Michelin Guide. Good luck to our restaurant owners and chefs in their fight. I suddenly feel a lot of hunger right now. Have a nice trip, and I wish your launch to take place as planned. Thank you.
Thank you for welcoming us today for this exceptional announcement.